Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel and to the 91st edition of the Rolling Stone. Hope that you had a great week, that you enjoyed some of the warm weather that we actually had. Quite a difference from just a few weeks ago when we were all freezing our noses off in 20 degree below zero weather. But I also hope that you guys are preparing for the next cold snap. I don't know if that's actually going to be a frost, a snow shower, or what, but it probably is going to happen. My grandma always said when she was still here that if March comes in like a lamb, it'll leave like a lion. And since March came in pretty tamely this year, that probably means that it's got at least one more ace up its sleeve that it's going to play to us before it exits the stage and gives the whole show to April. So we've got that to look forward to. But it'll be okay, right? Because we are all going to be getting more money from Uncle Sam because the 1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill finally passed Congress. Good old President Joe Biden signed it. And the checks are in the mail, gang. The checks are in the mail. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. Technically speaking, I suppose, we don't talk an awful lot about politics pure and simple. We probably deal a lot more with culture. And if we wanted to be hoity-toity about it, we might even say we spend more time on historical and philosophical ideas to the extent of my ability to actually talk about those things. But this is important, gang. This $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill, besides just the whopping number of zeros on that thing, which is pushing the deficit now. I mean, what is it up to almost now? $30 trillion. It's something that we have to talk about, especially because of what it reveals to contemporary society. Because the sad truth of the matter, gang, is that this COVID relief bill that the left has been harping about for the last couple of days. They believe that I'm recording this on Friday, March the 12th. We almost had a Friday the 13th. I could have done my Friday the 13th joke, but we'll have to wait for another month for that. But today, this day that I'm recording it, it is Friday, March 12th. The president, Joe Biden, signed it 5 days ago, which would make it, I believe, Monday. And ever since Monday, the left has been just patting itself on the back and tooting its own horn about, oh my gosh, because we have the House and the Senate and the White House, basically because we have the whole damn pie. You, Mr. and Mrs. Average American, are going to get a whole $1,400 to yourself. I actually saw a tweet yesterday which just said, "You are welcome, sincerely, the 81 million Americans." The implication being that if it had been for these brave souls who voted for Joe Biden, we wouldn't be getting a penny during the pandemic because the Trump administration would be off in Florida, golfing. The whole Trump White House would be in Florida golfing while people in the Midwest, people on the West Coast, to people in Philadelphia just basically either died of cold, they starved to death, or the virus snuck up on them and killed them in their sleep or something. And it's all a bunch of malarkey. All of these things that the left is saying is just a bunch of malarkey, because I have here a piece from Forbes magazine, which was published on February 22nd, written by, I'm going to butcher his last name, mea culpa, I apologize in advance, Adam Andrzejewski. It looks like it's a Polish name, or it's a Eastern European name. Those names, I'm sorry, they always play the devil with me. But anyway, Mr. Andrzejewski, writing in Forbes, he went through this COVID relief bill. This is what he says. Over the weekend, the U.S. House posted a first draft version of the American Rescue Plan of 2021, a $1.9 trillion emergency aid package to help America recover from the coronavirus pandemic. Previous legislation has already provided at least $4 trillion in funds for testing, paid family leave, small business relief, direct payments to individuals and families, the Kennedy Center, which is closed, by the way, and a plethora of non-related COVID-19 quote-unquote relief. So, then he starts breaking it down. What else exactly does this bill fund? Well, how about this? $1.5 million earmarked for the Seaway International Bridge, which connects New York to Canada. And wouldn't you know it, Senate Leader Chuck Schumer comes from New York. He actually represents New York. $50 million for family planning, quote unquote, going to nonprofits, i.e. Planned Parenthood or public entities, including, quote unquote, services for adolescents. Wouldn't we like to know what those services entail? $852 million for AmeriCorps Vista, and the National Senior Service Corps, the Corporation for National and Community Service, civic volunteer agencies. This includes $9 million for the AmeriCorps Inspector General to conduct oversight and audits of the largesse. AmeriCorps received a $1.1 billion FY 2020 appropriation. Now, as Mr. Andruski goes on to say in this piece, you know, you can have a debate over the merits or demerits of these particular things, but then he asks the really pertinent question: why is all of this in a COVID relief bill? Why is that? Because that isn't all. That's not the end of everything else that this COVID relief bill funds, gang. He goes on. He says, the Wall Street Journal editorial board estimated that only $825 billion was directly related to COVID-19 relief, and $1 trillion was expansions of progressive programs, pork, and unrelated policy changes. For example, he goes on to say, there is $470 million cut into this bill for the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the National Endowment of the Arts and Humanities, $200 million to the Institute of Museum of Library Services. This agency is so small that it doesn't even employ an inspector general, he says. $270 million funds for the National Endowment of the Arts and Humanities. And then it gets even better. It keeps going. $350 billion to bail out the 50 states and the District of Columbia. $128.5 billion to fund K-12 education. $86 billion to save nearly 200 pension plans insured by the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corps. There are no reforms mandated while these badly managed pensions are bailed out. Isn't that nice? Meaning that money, you might as well pour water into a sieve for all the good it's going to do. $50 billion goes to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. $39.6 billion to higher education. This amount is 3 times the money that higher ed received with the massive CARES Act funding from last March. $1.5 billion for Amtrak. In the 3 years before the pandemic, Amtrak lost $392 million even after a $5 billion taxpayer subsidy. And that's just scratching the surface, gang. We could go on and on and on, but there you have it. Of the $1.9 trillion that this bill deals out, only $825 billion actually goes to COVID relief. The other $1 trillion, the trillion with the capital T, it goes, I will repeat it again, to, if I can find it here, progressive programs, pork, and unrelated policy changes. Now, this raises, I think that this actually raises 2 points here. 2 very, very important points. Point number the first. we are no longer being governed. We are being ruled. And there's a difference. Being governed can imply, especially when we're talking about a self-governing republic like we are supposed to be, it implies that we, the people, have actually assented to the government and to what the government does. This is one reason why we have elections, not only so that our elected officials become a non-aristocratic oligarchy, but so that our interests, our ideas can be expressed within the halls of the federal Congress, right? Being ruled, that does not imply, that really does not necessarily imply that you have consented to being ruled, right? The Declaration of Independence talks about, the consent of the governed, not the consent of the ruled, right? So there might be a slight difference, we might be splitting hairs, but it's an important hair to split. Because we are no longer being governed, we are being ruled. The whole point of elections, the whole point of separating individuals from the massive body politic and sending them off to state capitals, the federal capital, making them public servants, is so that our interests, our opinions, our needs can be discussed and addressed, while at the same time, promoting, defending the general welfare, as the Constitution says, the common good, quote unquote. Well, that means, if that was actually happening, that means that in the middle of a pandemic, when the vast majority of the country is still under lock and key, with absolutely no hope, probably, of ever being open, of normality not coming back until next March. Remember, that is the new magical spot on the horizon. Next March is when everything will get back to normal. Then even if there needed to be another relief bill, there wouldn't be $1 trillion in pork, bridges, the National Arts and Humanities, Amtrak, which is losing money like a sieve, these pension programs that are so badly managed that they're losing money. There wouldn't be anything like that. They would have actually said, okay, people need help. We're going to help them. This is, this amount of money goes to individual payments. This amount of money goes to vaccinations. This amount of money goes to here. This amount of money goes to here. Let's pass it. Okay, we have an $800 billion bill? Okay, fine. Send it off. Get it signed. The very fact that this bill, all this pork too, is why this bill was 5,500 pages long. A little over that. It was like 5,598 some odd pages. Massive. Which means, too, that our representatives can't even read the blasted thing before they vote on it. They can't. No human being could actually, by the time that it's actually printed up, between the time that it's actually printed up and then the time that you have to vote on it, there's no time to actually go through it page by page and read, oh my gosh, this money goes here, this money goes here. Oh no, there's no time. It's all by design. It's all by design. This is how you fund pet projects. This is how you satisfy your interest groups. This is how you bring money into your district or your state, so that they will, in turn, keep electing you into your office. We're being ruled. We're not being governed. And that is a very massive switch, and not a good one either. Again, in a country that is supposed to be a self-governing republic. But this also leads me to the second point, gang. So, $825 billion goes to actual COVID relief. And some of that is actually going to go into these into these payments, these $1,400 checks that everyone is harping about, right? $473 billion is allocated for payments to individuals, right? And by the way, that's only 25% of the bill. So only 25% of the bill goes to direct payments. But let me ask you guys a question, okay? Is $1,400 actually going to make a big mark of help against you? Is it really going to be a big help? I mean, yeah, you're not going to turn up your nose at it. Of course not. No one should. But how much help is it actually going to give you? Remember, Joe Biden has said that we're not going to be back to normal until hopefully next March. Last month in February, he said, well, hopefully we'll be back to normal by Christmas. A few weeks passed. February rolled into March. Oh, no. Sorry, guys. We're going to have to wait until, hopefully we'll be back to normal next March in 12 months. So we've got 12 months before everything goes back to quote unquote normal. How much help is $1,400 going to do in 12 months? How far is $1,400 going to go in 12 months? Right? You have to, pay for the roof over your head, whether you're renting, whether you've got a mortgage. You've got to keep the lights on. You've got to pay for the water. You've got to pay for food. You got to pay for gas, right? Because good God, you've got to pay for gas. They're saying now that the national average for a gallon of gas in April is going to be $3. Okay? So you've got all of these expenses. How much is $1,400 actually going to go? How far? It's not going to go far at all, is it? I mean, it can't, because everything is so expensive anymore. Everything just is. So it's definitely not going to sharply cut into poverty like the left is saying. I mean, literally, that is actually a headline from the Washington Post, published on March the 7th. Biden's stimulus showers money on Americans, sharply cutting poverty and favoring individuals over businesses. Bull! As we've just said, $1,400, even if you are alone and single, with no other dependents, no other mouths to feed, it's not going to get you until next March. Which then makes me... This is my prediction, gang. This is my prediction. That is going to necessitate at least one more COVID relief bill. Somewhere in the near future, there's going to have to be another COVID relief bill. Now, what's the what's the significance of that? The significance of that is that this is becoming a pattern, especially with the Biden administration. He just gave it wasn't a press conference, but he gave an address to the country that, again, the left is just fainting. They're reaching for the smelling salts, because they're basically saying that it was one of the greatest speeches that any American president has ever given. Because he made a big deal about, I can't do this, by myself. I need you, the American people, to, do this, to fight this pandemic. Van Johnson, who's a commentator on CNN, actually was just ogling that point, saying, well, this is a sign of deeper patriotism on the part of Biden. It's not, but here's the thing. In that speech, the thing that caught my ear after I didn't listen to it, but after the speech, you read excerpts of it, you hear everyone talking about it, fighting over it on Twitter. What was very interesting was one part where Biden said that if things get bad again, the country will have to be locked down again. Okay? So we're not going to be back to normal until March. And even if we reach that point, if the end zone isn't moved again in that time, there's still no guarantee that things are going to stay normal. And by normal, I mean like how they were January of 2020, November of 2019, which is seeming more and more now like another world entirely. Because if things get bad again, then everything is going to have to be locked down again. And the possibility of that happening is actually high because CBS just ran a story just today, Friday, March 12th, saying that public health experts now, they're saying that we're never going to get rid of the COVID. It is here to stay. It's going to become part of just, it's going to become part of the landscape. So you have a virus that can't be defeated. You have the promise too, the quote-unquote warning by the president that if things get bad again, the entire country will have to be locked down again. And you have these pittance of a paycheck that is supposed to somehow magically see you and or your family through until everything is back to normal, even when there is no possibility in heaven, hell, or earth that it can be stretched long enough to last that long. Which suggests in my mind, and I don't think it's a leap in logic, gang. I don't think it's any great jump of the shark or anything. The left is getting us used to the idea of being entirely dependent on the government, upon the elites, our woke brahmins. These are the people that we have to rely on because we can't put our faith in normality. We can't put our faith in actually having a job that one day, things are getting bad, everything has to shut down again. We can't put our faith in any of that. The only thing that we can put faith in is that our public servants, quote unquote, our public officials, our public rulers in Washington can actually, maybe possibly they'll vote on another, $1.92 trillion coronavirus relief bill, which somewhere carved out there will give us another $1,400 check, another $1,500 or $1,600 check. This is the mentality that they are inundating in us because they're keeping everything in a state of flux. And then at the same time, they are making such a big to-do about these pittance of the checks, again, from the Washington Post. $1,400 checks will sharply cut poverty because it showers money on Americans. You get this check, you cash it in, you might as well have won the lottery. And this is, and even going on beyond that, gang, this can be part of the social credit system that the left wants to enact here, copying the social credit system in China. You want these... everything had to lock down again? You want some relief? Well, you know who you're going to vote for in the next election, Who do you listen to on TV? What are your political opinions? Just fill out this survey, comrade, and let us see if you qualify for any assistance. That is the second big thing that this so-called relief bill raises in my mind. And I don't think that I'm too far from the truth. And unfortunately, I sound like a broken record game, but it's going to keep happening until we collectively stop it. Now, what form that stopping is going to take, I've got a couple of ideas. I'm not going to say them right now, but this doesn't end by simply, electing more Republicans to Congress. This doesn't end by holding a rally. This doesn't end by petitioning the government, because the left, they've got a sweet deal going right now, and they know it. They've wanted the ability to socially reform the culture, and they've done a bang-up job at it just now. But now that they have this, because now that they can tie cultural mutation with the public purse, they know that they've got a golden ticket in that regard. That is story number one.